and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
I'm Colton. Hi, Mom.
And it's Jill.
And we are Mikeless this evening for this episode. We've already told you guys, we always record these Patreon episodes like right after the episode before it. So you got Mike in the episode before.
Yeah, it's kind of Mike's fault as well because he picked a 4-hour movie for us to review this week. So it's just, I mean... He doesn't have enough time to watch a 4-hour movie and this, brisk 91-minute movie.
Now, I hope all year the gag will be every time we bring up what ever happened to Baby Jane, that we increase the time on the movie.
6 hours.
Yeah, 6 hours. So let's see how high we can really get to it. But, this is a Patreon episode. So, Colton, why don't you explain what we're doing here?
Yeah, so Joy, my mom, she obviously pledges at the Horror Hound level, supporting the show, supporting me. So yeah, if you're a Patreon member and you've pledged for 6 months at the Horror Hound level, we'll review a movie of your pick. And she chose Eden Lake. And the reason why she chose it, her and I discussed it a little bit, so I don't have like a statement written up in her own words as per usual. And, this wasn't said verbatim, but essentially my mom doesn't watch a whole lot of horror movies on her own anymore. It's usually myself or my stepfather kind of forcing her to do so. And Eden Lake just so happened to be something that she saw more recently that she enjoyed and felt that in some respects, more so towards the beginning of the movie, seemed like a more realistic form of horror that people could experience in everyday life. A horror derived from like the true crime stories we've heard of delinquent kids over the years committing heinous crimes and the trouble that like children could get into without a strong support system around them. And when they're left to their own devices, or as she says, especially if they have a little bit of evilness within them. So yeah, that's why she chose Eden Lake.
Adorable.
Joy, just do me a favor. Make sure your husband leaves the room. We'll wait a second. There we go. Now let's get honest, Joy. It was Michael Fassbender that brought you to this movie, wasn't it? That's who's bringing everybody to this movie. I know you were like, Fassbender, there's some sort of beach or something. He's not going to have a shirt on. I get it. I understand.
I have a note as well where they're talking about the massaging seats, and I'm like, come on, Mom. Did you have to choose this? But yeah, we'll get into it.
So, with that, let's get into the trailer, and we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
So Kat's boyfriend is taking her to Paris for the weekend, and my boyfriend's taking me to a disused quarry.
At your first opportunity, turn around. It's beautiful.
Why don't we just find another spot?
I'm not gonna be bullied away by a bunch of 12-year-olds. Hey guys, can you turn your sounds down, please?
Go on here, mate.
Steve, where's the beach bag?
It's got the car keys in it. I just want my car back. Car keys, phone, wallet. You've had your fun.
First phone he sees, 999. Now we've got to finish this.
Run! Listen to me. Go get help. Go!
I've got to get us out of here. You hold on.
Eden Lake was written and directed by James Watkins, and the story is as follows. When a young couple heads to Eden Lake for a romantic camping trip, their quiet weekend is shattered by a group of delinquent kids. Over the course of a couple of days, the youth's rowdiness quickly turns to rage as the teens terrorize the couple, and their weekend outing becomes a bloody battle for survival.
So we're going to start off with our first experiences. Is this our first time seeing this, or is Michael Fassbender just... he's in the spank bank. He's every movie without a shirt. It's in there. It's committed to memory. Colton, it's only right we start with you. This is your mother's pick.
Yeah, so this is something that I've had logged before on Letterboxd that I have seen it, but I don't remember any of this movie when I was watching it. This is like from the period where I feel like there were some later movies in the late 2000s that were kind of like remakes of a lot of movies, like Last House on the Left or something like that. That like this kind of feels like part and parcel with that movie, that maybe I even had this movie confused for that movie or something like that, but it's kind of like one of those movies from the late 2000s where it's kind of following the torture porn era of movies, where movies are still a little bit, mean-spirited. They're still fairly bloody. And this was just one of those that I'm sure I probably rented at like a friend's house and we threw it on. Whether or not I paid 100% attention to it, I'm not sure. So rewatching this or, watching this, but it felt like kind of the first time for me. It was the sort of thing where Mom was telling me about aspects of the movie a couple of weeks ago. And I was just like, Mom, I can't comment on that. I don't remember the movie well enough to know like why they didn't leave the beach when they were playing the music or something like that. Right. Like it was just like, it's been, if I've seen this, I saw it on DVD in like 2008 or 2009. So pretty much a first watch for me. What about you, Jill?
Yeah, this is a first experience for me. Didn't even know this existed. And just a little note, I don't really find Michael Fassbender that attractive. If anything,
maybe Rowan's just outing
I don't know. He kind of gives me the ick. So,
really?
Yeah. And you, Rowan?
I mean, I personally just find Michael Fassbender charming in most things. So, this is a first time watch. Now, this has been on my radar. Kind of, a lot of YouTube people, like horror people I follow, actually always speak very highly of this movie and seem to like it, which kind of makes sense because, a lot of YouTubers that would be coming into my recommends are like a little younger than me. So I feel like they would be hitting this like right at the perfect time, to be watching these kind of movies. And, I did say before we recorded, did I get this mixed up with Lake Mungo? Yes, I did.
Mungo.
Lake
Mungo.
Many lake movies. Did I confuse everybody by trying to convince everyone we were doing Lake Placid? Maybe.
Which, honestly, I could have seen my mom choosing something like Lake Placid. I mean, she loves those like creature features. Yeah.
I'm sure Lake Placid will come someday. It has to.
Lake Mungo, to be fair, if my mom picked that, like pulled that out of the blue, I would have been like, what the hell, Mom? That's a really cool pick. I would have been very impressed. But we got Eden Lake.
Yeah, geez.
Yeah.
And then now that I've seen it, I'm very interested because apparently I saw on YouTube someone did a video very recently that they compared this to like a Tubi movie, like one of those asylum movies where this is called Eden Lake and I think the other one's called Lake Eden, and they were like, it's just a ripoff of that movie, like, what they always do, just rip off other movies. So now I feel like it's only right that I see the other one eventually.
Oh, yeah, you definitely got to watch that and give us, your full review.
Full review, yeah. We'll convince Jill to go.
Stream Screams.
Yeah, Stream Screams.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is my first time seeing this. So let's get into the box cutters and barbed wire of it all.
Nice.
I like the alliteration, Rowan.
Do you?
Good stuff. Yes.
You know what I like? I like
what?
Movies that start with Dimension Extreme.
Extreme.
Fuck yeah. There's nothing more 2000s. When I saw that, I was so hyped. And like in context, if you're like a loyal listener and you listen to the episode before this, like I watched this right after I watched What Happened to Baby Jane.
No, you literally did a double feature of these two movies. They couldn't be more different.
Actually, there is a common thread of like parenting.
Yeah, well,
and like not you know, and not being a good parent, and then your kid turns out to be a total brat. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But yeah, I was just thinking about like this. What a time to be alive when Dimension Films, specifically Dimension Extreme, was putting out movies pretty much straight to video. The three I had written down when I was kind of looking at what they released was Teeth, which I remember loving, Rogue, which I'm pretty sure Colton brought up to me about the fantastic poster.
It's also just actually a good creature feature. It's like
nice.
What Lake Placid should have been.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Like a big crocodile or something.
And then Feast, which I think I've talked about a couple times on the podcast. I'm a big fan of. But, you know, they're always like kind of the like independent, like kind of edgy horror movies. If you got them on DVD or Blu-ray, it definitely said like unrated or uncut, extreme on it. So yeah, like just, you know, starting off the movie, I was already in heaven. So
yeah, I saw that as well, and it instantly took me back to like the mid 2000s. And I looked, and essentially they were around for like 2007, 2008, basically like a couple of years. They got like 30 movies underneath that label, and it's essentially just for like extreme indie horror movies or extreme, you know, indie like sex comedies essentially, right? So I looked at it and I recognized a couple of names, but yeah, similar to you, it was Teeth, which if you're a listener, you don't know what Teeth is, essentially a woman who has teeth in her vagina and, kind of devours a few men that she's with in the movie. And Inside, which I haven't seen, but I've heard it's a very like extreme graphic horror movie. So I was like, all right, Mom, what are you setting me up for? Like, I was very much like, this is a strange choice. I thought I was going to be in for like Hostel or something when I was watching this movie, like getting it started. I was like, all right, let's see what you got. And then right after that, I was shocked with Kelly Riley, who when I was looking at in this movie, I thought she was the actress from Malignant. And I was just like,
oh my God,
someone was conspiring behind the scenes. Why do I have to watch two movies with this horrible actress from Malignant in it, like back to back? But
I love her,
not the same
Kelly
actress.
Riley.
Yeah,
she's
apparently
in
Yellowstone?
Russian Dolls
and
the Spanish Apartment or something.
Okay.
They're like French films, and they're really good.
Yeah, I looked her up afterwards, and obviously I've seen like half a dozen different things that she's been in. My mom kept telling me she's in Yellowstone, and cool. Funny enough, my mom thought she was like more famous than Michael Fassbender, and I was like, no, Mom, like he's Magneto in the X-Men movies.
She
like
should be.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
yeah,
Magneto's
but also
great,
Jack O'Connell from who started out in Skins.
Yeah.
I love him. When I saw him, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Like everyone that I love, Nicholas Hoult, like they started in Skins. And he plays essentially the same character, just like a skeet, like a chav. And that's like kind of like what he is in real life. But then he got into acting. Like he had like issues as like a juvenile. And so I think he plays that character really well. I love him.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to save this for later in the discussion, but I just think the casting all around in this movie actually is pretty great. Like obviously discovering Michael Fassbender before he was a big actor, like, my mom might have not been overly familiar with him, but obviously, all the X-Men movies as Magneto, he was just in The Killer with, David Fincher. He's been in a load of different movies. The guy's like, a star. And then Kelly Riley, apparently, like, she's huge now with, like, Yellowstone and stuff like that. And whether or not she's involved in, like, the spin-offs and stuff, I'm not sure. And then, like you said, Jack O'Connell. But also just all the kids. All the, like, kids that are, like, part of this, like, delinquent youth group. They are like little shits, and they're all great. When I was watching it, I was just like, man, I hate all these kids. But also like the way they hold themselves, like the way they look, everything about them like fits it like perfectly. I was like, the casting just killed it in this movie pretty much. Like they did a great job. So yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how involved in movies Jack O'Connell was at this point, like in 2008. I know him from like
he was still in Skins during that point. So
yeah, so I know him from like Starred Up. I think it came out in like 2013 or so. Like it was kind of making the indie circuits, and I heard some people talking about how great he was in it. And he's a very similar role. I think in that one, it's like a youth that had a life of crime that now he's like, in prison. I think he's like trying to reconcile with his father or something like that. So that was kind of where he came on my radar. But yeah, I mean, all around the cast in this, the casting agent did a great job, or the casting director.
I was going to say too, I really enjoyed the setting of this, like rural England. Because, it's always fun when you're watching something overseas that isn't something you normally see, but it's also like kind of something you always see. Like it's just like a small town that, you know, there's like a beach somewhere, which is like very similar to like where I live. It reminded me of like my area pretty much exactly, and kind of gave me like I'd written down it kind of gave me like big Stephen King vibes, like just like something off about the town, obviously, you know, and we find out like something off about these kids. I don't know what the fuck is going. I mean, obviously, you know, we'll later on we know the parenting isn't really up to par there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was just like, this is really like, I wonder if there's kind of Stephen King influence there in the writing.
We were talking about in our last episode that we just recorded about the subgenre of, what was it, psycho biddy or
yeah. Hey, exploitation, psycho biddy.
Yeah. Well, there's one for this one too. It's called like hoodie horror or something.
Hoodie horror. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. What is hoodie horror? Tell me more.
So apparently this is like a thing. So during this time in England, there was like a lot of like political unrest between like the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. And so they were trying to spin this like propaganda about, you know, the youth being really menacing at this time. And so you have like a class war between the rich people, which comes into play with Michael Fassbender and Kelly Riley when they come in. They're like kind of yuppie from like the city. They come to this town for a vacation. Yeah. And then you have like all these working class people who they, you know, like have a conflict with.
Yeah, butt heads with.
And I think they even say hoodie in this movie at points.
Okay.
But it's just like people wearing hoodies. I thought it meant like hoodlum, but maybe that comes into play. But yeah, it's about, you know, all this like juvenile like mischief and shit. So I thought that was cool.
Well, yeah, I mean that kind of fits with like what Eden Lake is in the movie, right? And like the, what is it, Slapton Quarry or whatever, where basically it's they're getting ready to kind of like ruin all this natural greenery and just put up like a housing development, right? So it just winds up being like, yeah, it's like a bunch of rich affluent people kind of moving in, creating a subdivision on like this blue collar working town. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand that. And I do think like oftentimes a lot of like true crime and whatnot, they do kind of I think it's more interesting to focus on like almost like crazy children, you know, like a story of like, can you believe that like a kid did this or like, you know, that he killed his parents or anything like that. And this sort of movie kind of like leans into those fears as well. Right. Like, oh, my God, look at how evil these kids can be. Right.
It's even better with like the British accent. Like, I don't know what it is, but it just takes me there. Like, these little kids are like terrifying, but when you barely know what the fuck they're saying, oh my God. Like
they're using all this slang.
Yeah. I love the chav subculture. It cracks me up, and I fucking love it. That's all.
Well, and it's funny because you know who didn't love the chav subculture? It's all the lower class that fought against this film. I did see a whole big thing about that. Was that you know, I don't know much about you know, class wars in England, but the reading I did do on this film, it said that, you know, this was during that period that they were really fighting back against, like, you know, the definition of chav and what it meant and all that kind of stuff, and talking about how, like, it was a word that was kind of opted by, like, middle upper class to put working class down. I just think it's so interesting because here I am, you know, gushing and geeking out about my Dimension Films intro, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get like this uncut horror movie, and then it was just like, it was kind of a pleasant surprise, like not only reading it in the film, but like then reading the text outside the film of like, that's what's so great about like, especially indie horror, is like there's all the like such this like political undertone in it that like I think plays really well. Like I got it when I was watching it, and I thought it worked really well. It didn't distract so much from the movie that, like, you know, it's not like I was watching The Hunt or something where you're like, where I'm just like, oh my God, this is, you know, this might be terrible camp. Like, this isn't campy at all. And it's just like the perfect amount of, we're going to talk about these issues without you even really knowing that we're talking about them.
Yeah.
And it's just like such a great bit of writing.
And I mean,
very
you know,
subliminal.
Very subliminal, you know, like when fuck off yuppie cunts was written on the sign, you know, I mean, it's very subdued, you know. I didn't notice that, you know.
Shut up.
But no, I mean, like, yeah, obviously those sort of themes, and like, obviously, I don't know about the political unrest in England either, but that's there. I can see it. Like, as soon as you mention, like, oh, there was some pushback, like, obviously the blue collar people didn't like being portrayed this way. There isn't, I don't even think, one good blue collar person in this movie. I think everybody that is like in the working class and in this community, they're all like in on it. And by the end of the movie are willing to kind of like look the other way at what's going to happen to our main character. So yeah, it's very much like the heroes or the people we're rooting for in this movie are just like, you know, the people from the city, you know, that get away for the weekends, you know.
But
and,
I don't know. I don't know, because I really didn't like Michael Fassbender's character. I thought he was a total like asshole.
All right. So I have a note here that the first talking point I have is Steve a pussy? Because
he is.
Because you put in our group chat before I watched the movie, you're like, Steve is such a pussy. And I was like, all right, we got to get into this because I'm curious, like, what were you expecting Steve to do in this movie, or why did you dislike him so much? I'm just curious.
Okay, if a man decided to take me on a weekend getaway, okay, and at first we go to the city, we stop at like some like caravan place for the night, and there's people being really loud and he's not going to do anything about it. Like, I would expect my man to go say something to those loud ass people, and he was just like, me, I'm not going to do that.
You're talking about like in the hotel? Or
yeah, I was like, okay, red flag number 1.
Oh, we
red flag number 2.
Me and Jill have issues already.
Yeah, we have issues too. But anyways, go on, Jill. I'm just, just curious.
Okay. And then when he drives them to the lake, and it's like clearly not a good idea because, they got to take all these weird like back roads and stuff, and it's like dangerous. I'm like, okay.
Dangerous? You're just going camping.
Camping at a lake? With your shitty little like tent that you throw in? No, I'm not a camping person. So secondly,
Jill's
I'd
glamping.
Be like,
if you're not bringing the RV,
exactly.
And you're like,
I'm like, you're gonna bring me here.
I understand that glamping life, so I get that.
If you're gonna bring me to this shitty lake to propose to me, also. No. Red flag number 2. Red flag number 3. If there's shitty little kids, with a dog shit in there and like, being fucking weird, say something. If you're not going to say something, why didn't they just leave? Like, just leave. So he's a pussy. That's why.
So my mom actually wrote, this was the main question she wanted to ask us. So I'm glad we just made it here. She said, how would have you dealt with the situation on the beach? And if you would have left, when would have you have done so? So when I was watching this, I wasn't actually that like turned off by like what Steve was doing. I was like, okay, he just let them do their own thing for a little bit, and then he approached them, and he was trying to be cool and trying to be charming, just saying like, hey guys, you mind turning it down? Like, you're kind of annoying us here. And they were just a bunch of little shits and said like, no. He turned it down physically, which I was like, all right, already kind of ballsy, leaning in deep, like, lean in to turn it off, like actually like touching their property. And then, he walks away and they turn it up, and he's kind of like, should I deal with this more? But realistically, like, what can you actually do in that scenario? Like,
I would just leave. It's not a romantic setting. It's honestly like the shittiest getaway I've ever seen.
But why is that on Steve? Like at that specific point, it is Steve's problem in about 10 more seconds. But at that point, I was like, Steve hasn't done anything wrong. He actually confronted them.
Yeah, his biggest offense is bringing his girlfriend to the shitty little beach.
Maybe they like lakes. Maybe they like hiking. Maybe they're outdoorsy people.
I mean, in his defense, he does say like last time he was there, it was
nicer.
It was just a park. Like,
so he should have left immediately when he saw how shitty it was. Come on now.
I mean, he had other plans. He was all he was trying to work up the courage to pop the question. He's a little bit distracted.
I got no love.
I guess I have different life experiences where I'm just like, I don't know. I'm probably not saying anything to these teenagers because like I'm just thinking, I know too many stories like, you're gonna like, hey, can you turn this down? And then you're just gonna get shot. So
yeah, so for me as well, like I think asking them to turn it down if it's like truly annoying him and his girlfriend, like that's fine. And then even going like, once again, I think he went a little bit further than I personally would have went in terms of like actually physically touching their stuff. I don't think I would have went there. I would have like asked and tried to be like charming and cool and be like, hey guys, come on, you're just, I get what you're doing. You just turn it down a little bit type of shit. But where I would have changed is just when you go back and your girlfriend, hopefully fiance, just definitely doesn't want to be there. I wouldn't have been him where he's like, well, we were here first. Why are we going to leave? I'd just be like, all right, that's childish. That's stupid. You should have just leave at that point. Like, it'd be different if she really wanted to stay there. And it's like, okay, well, maybe we just move down the beach a little bit further so the music's a little bit quieter or whatever. But the fact that he was just very childish is like, oh, I'm not leaving. We were here first. It's just like, that's when I was like, you've lost me a little bit, Steve. I was in your court and I was, wondering why Jill was calling you a pussy up until now.
It is not romantic. And I was also really upset because you told me this was going to be like a horror romance. And I was like, this is what I'm getting, Michael Fassbender. In his
to be fair, I read the genre tag, which says, horror and romance. But,
I was like, this is, and then there's a dog shitting in the sand. And then, is it Jack O'Connell who takes his like flaccid weenie out? That did it for me. I was like, I would have been out of there immediately.
I mean, to me, the biggest offense Steve did is he didn't fucking kick the shit out of that dog. That would have been the end of it.
You know what's funny? I have a note, and I was like, if that dog was bothering Exilia, Rowan's putting that thing in a rear naked choke.
Yeah,
that's what I have written there.
It's going down.
Throwing it in the lake, dude.
I was like, Rowan would have no time for this. I don't know if he'd go over and confront all those youths, but, with that dog running over, getting up in Exilia's face, I think he would have did something.
Okay, I want to go back to what you said about every one of the working class people being shitty. There was that kid who tried to help. What's her face? I don't even remember her name, the girl. He's about to, and then she kills him. He's like, miss. And I was like, oh, like, that is so sad.
But also in fairness, she witnessed that same kid stabbing her fiance.
Well, also, he tries to help her after they've burned her fiance and burned a kid alive. And it's like, well, maybe now he's like, well, we went a little bit too far. We shouldn't have burned the kid alive, just burn the body. So it's like, I don't know. I never had too much remorse for that kid. But
you feel bad for the burn kid?
I got more.
I was like, fuck that kid.
What'd you say, Jill?
The parents at the party when she like crashes it, they were like,
we're jumping all the way to the end already? There's so much more to talk about.
I just want to say that there's decent people here. So the brother that, she like hijacked his vehicle, that was a decent person, right? He was trying to help her and then he was trying to get his brother. And she's like, fuck that, I'm taking the van. And then also the parents, like, they're trying to help her until they find out that she, like, murdered their kids. Like, I feel like if that were my parents, they probably murder them too. Like, think about it. I know that's not a great argument, but, like...
No, it's like,
if you found out your kids
these
just
people
died,
aren't shitty because they're going an eye for an eye. There's 20 people at this party and they're all willing to murder this woman and not say anything.
Because all their kids just got
See, I think I read it almost differently where, like, I get what you're saying. Like, when there's nothing... When there's no danger, there's not anything happening, like, the parents are pretty passive when she shows up and, like, they're trying to help. But, like, to me, it just seemed like as it went on, like, things just seemed more insidious. Like, these guys were definitely, like, even if they didn't do anything, they were, like Colton said at the beginning, like, they're just turning their heads to what's happening. Like, there's way more of them that could just grab the father and be like, we're not doing this. But they're like, no, cool, like,
I like that you're like, they show the working class people as good people when they murder the main character and abuse their children and look the other way. They're such great people.
But it's also like, I'm not saying they're all great people. I'm saying not all of them are bad, like you're saying. But also, you see the problems that are rampant, like, like...
We're going to both sides this,
There's good people on both sides.
Oh, great.
They're
Thanks, guys.
Working all the time, they just let their kids run amok and, and then...
If I was a working class person living in a trailer, I'd be upset with this movie too,
Let's ask, we're already in this party for a second. Let's ask a serious question here. Like, are we all on board that this is definitely like a swingers party or something going on?
There was something off about this party.
There's no kids. There's no kids around. They're all gone. The parents are all like frolicking together. And then
what did it say on the stage? What did it say on the stage? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It was just celebration or something. I don't know.
It might be. Did you see an upside down pineapple anywhere?
No, I didn't spot it, but we could go back and look.
Is that like a code or?
Yeah,
it is.
Like
that's a swinger code.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm learning.
I did not know this.
How the hell would I know? I'd have no idea.
That's like common sense.
Common sense. They
Yeah.
they teach you that in grade 6. Why don't you remember your school?
I mean, I purposely don't buy anything with pineapples on it just in case someone gets the wrong idea.
In case you hold the pineapple upside down by accident.
Yeah.
So we got to get back because
Yeah.
we skipped all the way to the end.
That's
of the
right.
movie.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The end of the movie, we can discuss because there's like multiple levels of like just like disbelief / like, oh, you got to really buy into some coincidences for all this to happen. But for me, it's just like, just to get back earlier in the movie, there were so many like little beats that I was pretty much similar to Jill. I was just like, you could just leave. Like, why are we still here? Like, I get personally going out camping, you know, trying to make the moves in your shitty little tent. I get it. You know, you do what you can do. But what I don't understand is after having a bad day, after them popping his tire.
You have a bad day.
Exactly. You know? What? He drives like a maniac through the back roads on his, you know, his dummy tire. And I'm like, bro, you're just asking to blow another tire. But anyways, why after that, after going and grabbing lunch, after these idiots left their cooler open and got all their food ruined, and I was just like, bro, you guys are lucky you didn't get mauled by bears. In a different movie, it would have been a creature feature. But why did they go back again? That's what I don't understand. I'm just like, it wasn't a very good outing. You know, at the very least, go back to that park and go like camp elsewhere. Camp on the other side of the lake, or, you know, go to, you know, a different lake further down. Why did you go back to the exact same place that it's like, you know what? We had such a horrible experience yesterday. Let's go back again. That was like my thing where I was just like, you kind of lose a lot of sympathy for me because you're just going back to where all this happened again. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think this all plays into it, though, which I think is like very purposeful in the narrative, where they do make the stupid decisions like that. Because, you know, I was thinking we're sitting here talking about the townspeople and, you know, like, oh, everyone's shitty or whatever. But then, you know, as you break it down, like these guys basically break into this park that the town is shut down. They're working or whatever. And like, yeah, like to me, these were all things that are like, yeah, I don't know. These yuppies are kind of deserving what's coming to them because they just do stupid decisions like that. Where to me, this is where I kept reading that like class warfare, where like they know they're not welcome. There all these shitty things happen to them, and they're like, no, you know what? Like, we're entitled to be here. Like, screw you that live here. This
no.
We should be here. And I was like, I think this is like pretty smart. I mean, you know, these guys were breaking the law, man. They broke into the park. You get punished by children murdering you.
Yeah, it's colonial.
I didn't expect the revelation of like Rowan's a narc, and he's like, you know what? You're camping on private land. You deserve to be burned alive. You know, just like, bro, like they're camping. They're not like, you know, clear cutting the forest or something. Like they snuck in and camped on like essentially private land, or you're not supposed to be. But Rowan's like, yeah, someone's on your trespassing on your property. Shoot him.
I mean,
America, you know?
Well, I mean, it works both ways, man. Like the kid that narked our lead out, you know? I don't feel bad when he gets burned alive. I'm like, I guess you shouldn't have been a narc, man.
Oh my God. Wow.
I will say, though, you were talking about the dummy tire. This was the little things in this movie that I like really appreciated, because there's so many movies we talk about that have like dumb choices or like just dumb, you know, we always, you know, I'm thinking especially when Auxilia used to be on the podcast, like, how come cell phones never work, like, wherever you are?
Oh, we got some dumb choices to talk about in this if you want.
And there is, but that was one where I was like, that's a very, like, low-hanging fruit where they could have been like, oh, I don't have a spare tire. Like, I had to pack stuff for the trip. There's no spare tire. So I was like, oh, they have one. Like, this is something that normally wouldn't happen in, like, a lesser movie.
I think I would have preferred if they didn't have a spare. And they were just stuck there, because then I would just be like, oh, okay, well, they're stuck there. You know, they had a shitty night, but they gotta stay where you can and try and make the best of it, you know? Whereas when they have the spare, they leave and then they come back again. Then you lose, once again, like, any sympathy for me to a certain degree, right? Where I'm like, why'd you come back again? Just go somewhere else. But yeah, some of these dumb decisions for me, that one's a little bit later, so I'll save that. But I'm like, how did they get the car keys stolen? They go in the water.
They were in the
they're
bag,
frolicking
they
around.
said.
Yeah, they're frolicking around 10 or 15 feet out in the water. You know, they're having a nice romantic time that, you know, Jill wasn't into, you know. frolicking around with each other. And somehow the car keys get stolen either when they're frolicking or when Michael Fassbender is a scuba diver all of a sudden and she's sat on the shore by herself. So I'm just like, when did these car keys get stolen? They say they're in the beach bag, which would have been right next to them. So I was just like, well, that's kind of convenient that they just stole these keys.
I'm not sure.
Maybe they trained the dog. Maybe that's what was going on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And he was over sniffing it out. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, we're gonna assume this, like, this isn't these. It didn't seem like it might have been Jack O'Connell's first time murdering people.
Oh, see, I disagree.
It's not. It's not.
Oh, really? Well, are you talking about Skins or are you talking about this movie that we're in?
I'm talking about Skins.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm
talking about this movie that we're discussing, you know? Yeah.
Same character.
In this movie, I don't know if I buy the kids to be as bad as they wind up being. And we're kind of at that moment where I feel like stealing a car and joyriding is a level of delinquency. Obviously, it's like illegal, you know, but I feel like the jump from that to burning a kid alive, committing multiple murders, torture, it's like a big canyon to get there. Like, it's like, I can understand, you know, taking a car and going for a joyride. Like, a lot of people, when they get their license, they've probably driven a vehicle that their parent didn't want them to drive, or, you know, they never had their full license yet, but they took it and for a spin or something like that. There's a chasm, like I said, between that and like murdering people. So that's why in this movie, I kind of wanted the Jack O'Connell character to be a little bit more skeevy. I kind of wanted him to have like, like a face tattoo, but I wanted him to have like the teardrop or something that could kind of like make me believe that it's like, oh, he's like, this is actually gang activity. He's been involved in some serious shit. Whereas in this, it's like they mention the word gang at one point and they kind of do like, oh, this is initiation now. We're on to stab Michael Fassbender. But I didn't really 100% buy him that he'd be like this crazy of a murderer, I guess. Like, don't get me wrong. He's good in the movie. It's just like, I just thought it was a crazy escalation.
I mean, his dog got murdered.
Dog got murdered.
If someone murdered my dog,
he should be thanking them.
You would not be breathing. I would go to jail for my fucking dog. Like,
man, this insanity. You know, this is like the John Wick rationale coming in.
You should say, thank you, I'll get a cat now. I made the wrong decision in the first place.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
I know you guys aren't going to resonate with this, but at the, like, near the end, when she goes into the house and sees the other dog and sees the bowls that say Bonnie and Clyde. Oh, my God,
looked like a second dog that needed to be kicked.
Oh,
I was like, you still got one at home. You know, you still got, you know, you're not that bad off.
Someday people are going to like call the police on me for animal abuse and take everything I say seriously. Listen, to me, I was like, they set up how bad these kids are because throughout, you know, the whole first part of this film, we literally see these kids torturing animals multiple times. Like, they have the skunk.
They got the honey badger in the shopping cart. What's the other ones?
At their house, when Michael Fassbender breaks into their house, they're like tormenting some sort of animals.
Oh, you are
in
right.
Cages
yeah,
there.
Like, next door neighbor's backyard. Yeah.
So that's
about that.
Yeah. We should
talk about that. That's also a good reason why Steve sucks, by the way.
But yeah, I was like, these kids obviously are fucked up. Like, and you know, almost it was like, I don't know how I felt about the touch at the end where we tried to do like, oh, you know, well, the parents are just as bad. So it's like learned behavior. Just because, you know, to me, like, I don't know. It was weird. When we get to the end, I'll talk more about that. Yeah. Let's talk about breaking and entering into
what I was gonna say is like
house.
I guess in real life, like, you know, a warning sign most of the time for people that they're gonna become serial killers. It's like they always talk about how they abused animals and stuff. So yeah, I guess like that sort of setup is there. It's just, once again, I guess I didn't read these characters as like hard or as like vicious in the beginning of the movie, like to what they wind up becoming. Like, once again, like burning a child alive by putting, you know, I think it's like called collaring them or something, like putting a tire full of fuel around their neck and burning their head is like, that's like insane levels of just like insanity, right? In terms of just like torture and whatnot, that I was just like, I didn't expect when I was watching this movie that the natural progression would be like, you killed my dog, now I'm torturing your husband by stabbing and barbed wire and all this sort of thing. Now I'm burning you guys alive and I'm burning a kid. It's just like, once again, it's just like, it felt like a really quick escalation to me that I just thought like was a little bit over the top. But yeah, going back to Steve. Steve is crazy because he kind of gets told at the restaurant that it's like, oh, don't talk shit about my boys, oh, they're little menaces, but like, basically we're with them. And he goes to this kid's house and just breaks in. And I'm just like, imagine what would happen if Steve just walked into his house and all the kids were like sitting around, like smoking up, doing whatever. It's just like, he's instantly in the wrong. He's like trespassing on these people's house, and it's not even a knock at the door. It's like walking right on in like he owns the place. I was just like, bro, you're crazy. I was like, you kind of deserve to get the shit kicked out of you right now if you get found out. I was shocked that we were watching that.
That was so stressful. That was stressful. This whole movie had me stressed.
It kept really making me frustrated too, like breaking into the house, him not doing anything to the kids, just because all I could think about was the killer. And I'm like, come on, man, you can take care of them. Just, Hitman style these kids. And this would be like a prequel.
Yeah, it's just like, I slow my breathing, so my heart rate is at 65. Just going through his head, the inner monologue of just being vicious. Yeah.
You said a good thing there, Jill, and I will agree that I did think this was pretty, like, stressful in terms of, like, I thought it portrayed that, like, chaoticness. I know, Colton, you said, the escalation was a little far-fetched for you, but, like, I thought it played out pretty good. I was like, for something that obviously wanted to be, like, somewhat grounded, like, there's no ghouls and goblins or anything, like,
yeah,
like I was just like, I think this is like really, really well done for like this kind of film.
Oh my god, that's wild. Like, this was the sort of movie when I was watching it, I was like, Mom, why'd you pick this? Why do I gotta watch this? Until like a certain point, essentially. Like, for a lot of it, I thought this movie was kind of dumb. Like, I thought a lot of the choices the characters make, like, once again, Steve just waltzing on into this person's house is, like, insane. But also, like, we'll get into the dog killing, I guess. Like, that whole scene is, like, edited so poorly that you can't really see what's happening. For some reason, Michael Fassbender is standing sideways with the knife while two people are, like, tackling him, and he's not doing anything. The dog kind of gets just, like, killed, and you don't know what happened. I understand there's a level of just confusion to it, to kind of, like, keep it a surprise for the audience. But kind of the scenes that immediately, like, follow that one, where, let's say they crash the car, Michael Fassbender's pinned. There's a branch that isn't that big. I think if you just like pushed on it with your feet, got in the back seat and did it, you probably could get him out.
He's a pussy.
I'm mostly talking about the main character now. She could have got him out. Like, if you just like put your seat back and kick at it, like put your feet on and kick it, but whatever, you can't get him out. But he specifically says like, run and go and get help. What does this character do? What does she do? She runs 10 feet into the forest, squats down in some roots, and goes to bed.
I was so mad.
I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was just like, this is crazy. That, like, she just runs, like, 10 feet away and goes to sleep. I was just like, she must have been real tired. They must have had a great night the night before to run 10 feet into the woods and fall asleep. I just couldn't believe it. That I was just like, this is not a good choice for this character, because it kind of like was like a house of cards where I was watching the rest of the movie and I was like, this character just has no survival instincts. This character is not resourceful. This character is kind of stupid at every turn.
A little resourceful.
Well, okay, you're going to talk about like how she made
But I didn't think she was resourceful.
When she got underneath, when she went through like the floorboards and that like little shack and went underneath the water, I was kind of impressed by that, not gonna lie.
I know, it's a surefire way to make sure Steve dies, putting all of his open wounds
die
in pond water, like let's die. It's just like, God, I don't want Jill to ever have to do triage on me. She's like, you know what? We'll just rub some mud all over these wounds, It's just like... Just like, no, I don't think that's smart either. I will say, like, she had her hands tied in that situation of what to do. But, like, there's so many points in this movie where I'm just like, why did it go this way? For example, eventually she's running away and she steps on, I'm not sure what it is, a spike? It's hard to see, like, what she steps on.
Yeah, it's like a trap or something.
That got me, man. That got me. I was like, oh.
I will say it's going through a lot further than I expected. She got, like, it's a big spike, which makes me feel like it's like a construction thing to, like, hold down something heavy or something like that. So she steps on that. She gets it out by pushing against the log.
That was gangster. That was just
that was wild.
All right, and then she doesn't take it as like a weapon to ever fight back with or do anything with.
Okay, you're right.
She just leaves it behind. And I'm like, you got a bunch of people that are like, they're basically torturing and killing your husband or your fiance. They're trying to kill you, and you just left, a 10-inch spike that could easily be like double as like a knife or something to fend for yourself. And then what's funny is later in the movie, she literally makes kind of like that exact weapon when she like breaks the glass and just wraps some like tape around it. And she's like, all right, now I'm going to kill this little kid when he runs up behind me. Where it was just like, there was a lot of points in this movie where I was just like, this is kind of just dumb. For example, again, Bluetooth. Bluetooth doesn't work the way it works in this movie. You guys think it's confused. She has a phone, and I guess maybe it doesn't have service at that point or something. She turns on her Bluetooth to connect to her husband's phone to call the authorities. When I'm just like, you could have ran the 50 feet in the woods to get the cell phone service. Why are we doing this? And once again, Bluetooth doesn't work that way. I can't connect to my mom's phone in the same house and make calls off of her phone instead of mine.
Maybe it did with these shitty little flip phones back in the day. Who knows?
Or maybe they just at the time didn't understand.
Yeah, I don't think the people making this movie understood what Bluetooth is, because I did use those shitty little flip phones, and there's no way you could just Bluetooth in and like make calls from other people's phones and stuff.
But
it's
Jack
insane.
O'Connell knew.
Yeah, because it like vibrates in his pocket.
Bluetooth.
Yeah, it vibrates in his pocket, and at the top of the screen it says like Bluetooth on or something like silly, right? Where it's like, okay, whatever. Maybe that existed back then, but I was just like, that's kind of dumb too. Another one. They're in the construction site. She's trying to break into this, this building to kind of get in and hide, or maybe like search for supplies or whatever. First of all, she doesn't try and shoulder it or kick it or anything like that, right? Like as soon as the delinquents get there, one of them kicks it and that's it. They're inside, right? It takes a second. This thing is elevated off the ground by like a foot and a half, 2 feet. For some reason, she teleports on top of the building as the kids are rounding it, and the movie shows the side of it, and there's no feasible way she could have scurried up the side. There's no pole, there's no like windows she could have grabbed onto, there's nothing. Somehow she Spider-Womaned up the side of this, and she's hiding on top, when logically the movie could have just put her underneath. So there's like so many like little details when I'm watching this movie. It's like, okay, it's not like a bad idea. It's just, it prompts like, why didn't you do this, right? Like, why didn't you walk 50 foot in the woods, call somebody, you can't get through, so they call you back and your ringer's off and then they know you're there. Like, why do you do this weird Bluetooth calling thing? Why do you teleport on top of this building? Why don't you use this like spike as a weapon?
It's a hot
There's
mess,
so
dude.
many like, why? It's just, I was constantly like, why did it go this way?
I don't know, man. I thought it was all I will say the roof one, I was laughing because I was like, also the minute they walk away, it's like they're gonna see you. Like it's not like higher than their view. Like they'll literally walk out the door and they'll just be like, oh yeah, she's just right here on the roof, guys. We missed that one.
I will say, like, obviously I'm bagging on this movie a little bit. I will say that I think the actors in this movie were weirdly committed to the roles too. I was watching this and I was like, imagine filming this. You're out in the woods for like 20 days. Covered in mud and fake blood, and you're all wet all the time. You're like dragging yourself up muddy hills and, going in ponds and all this stuff. I was like, this must have been a miserable experience to film. Like, like Kelly Riley, like, is just like disgusting for like over half of this movie.
Dude, the dumpster.
Oh yeah,
or like compost. Or whatever she gets in.
Yeah. I was just like,
oh man, when she gets out and she's like standing in front of that mirror and she's just completely like head to toe black and grimy. I thought that was a great shot. But yeah, it's
I mean, it was good. I mean, it's a little bit on the nose with what is written on the mirror, where it's like the worst animal is you, or whatever it says. I can't
didn't
remember.
even notice that.
Oh, really? It's written on the actual mirror. It says like, I wrote it down somewhere, but it's just like, it's like the worst animal, and it's like a mirror. So like you look in yourself and it's like, oh, I'm the worst thing out here in the woods or something. Something like that. I have it written. Oh, the most dangerous animal in the forest, and then it has your reflection because you look in the mirror. So basically it's like, clean up after yourself, don't start a forest fire, that sort of vibe. But in this movie it winds up being like, oh, this is the turn for where like our character was just running away from there, but now she's gonna stab this kid 30 seconds later when he sneaks up behind her, which once again, I think that was a slight bridge too far at that moment. I think if you wanted her to make the hard turn into like stabbing kids in the neck, flooring it as they're walking in the roads, just fling them over the top of your vehicle. I think there should have been a scene earlier in the movie where like someone was like scuffling with her and she like did it purely for survival. Like it was me or them, and she grabbed the rock and smacked him in the head and it caved his head in a little bit, so now he's dead or something like that. There should have been like a self-defense moment, because this was literally like, hey miss, dead, right? Like just like instantly gone. Like it was just
she had enough at that point. She was like, fuck it.
In her defense too, she didn't know that kid was like coming to help or anything. She just assumed that they were after her, because like after she does it, she like holds them and is crying and she's sad. She's a teacher, man, so she loves kids.
Stuff. No teachers ever wanted to kill one of their kids. They've never felt any animosity for their students.
Jill.
I will remain silent.
Yes, definitely stay silent, Jill. But yeah, for me, it was just like she has not fought back at any moment up until this point. So it's just like if she's gonna become like essentially the predator, I want her to like have a moment where it's like it makes a little bit more sense. I understand she's gone through a lot. She saw people burned alive. She's been, tied up, all that shit. I get it. It was just like, I felt like she should have been like fending them off or something for her first kill.
Right.
Like even if it was that one kid or something, like it still would have been fine. It's just like, once again, there should be a scuffle. It should be like an accidental death. But I mean, clearly they were just like, no.
I kind of see what you're saying. Like it should be a scuffle. She accidentally kills a kid, and then she comes to that realization. She said, I have a taste for kids' blood. I need more. And then,
just like the dog.
And then it just becomes a slasher for the last 40 minutes
now
of this
there's
movie.
A twist.
Mowing him down.
That's right. Yeah.
Becomes like Rambo or something. I think there is like, when you put like the branch in her mouth, that's like a Rambo thing, isn't it? Like where he's like doing like
or
sure. Predator or something. I can't
Predator,
remember. Like,
I think did that. Yeah.
Yeah, like puts the the branch in his mouth and he like gotta like set his leg or something. I was just like, oh, I've seen this before. They're definitely like gearing up to make her into almost like an action hero. But it was just like, yeah, once again, I would have liked it to be massaged a little bit more.
Can we talk about Adam, the kid, how he like turns on her?
Oh yeah, that little shit. Yeah, I could not stand Adam. My question is, what's up with these helicopter shots? Which, to be fair, is a question, because I'm like, all of a sudden when she's being led by Adam, they just have multiple helicopter shots, and I know from being in production, helicopter shots are expensive. So it's just like. What does this accomplish? You see all the like trees moving around them. It's so obvious they're in a helicopter, but whatever. And then it's like, what's up with Adam? Which I was like, why is this guy being so weird? Like,
how did she not like notice? That's my other like quip with her, is that she's like, oh yeah, I'll just follow this kid deeper into the forest, like the opposite way than I was going. Like,
man,
and then he sits down to play a game.
She's a teacher. She trusts the kid. Like, she's like, oh, this.
Why? She has no reason to trust this kid. This kid's an idiot.
You must be like crazy.
He got bullied. He got bullied.
Why?
Take you out to the middle of the woods and be like, oh, I'm clearly going further into the woods and like not out of the woods. It's just like, she doesn't know where the kid's leading her. They're going on a trail like that. Like I could be going out to the road nearby.
She was following the power line thingies though.
Yeah.
And then he's like bringing her back to where she came from.
Yeah, but maybe she thought he knew the better way. He's from there.
Yeah, like, fucking following that kid. I would have kept doing, like, I would have survived, because I would have
I'm glad that his centipede got crushed in his jar.
Oh, wow. That's tough.
That whole part I kind of liked, like, because, like I said, I thought this did a pretty good job, even if the choices were unrealistic or, stupid or whatever. Like, I thought I did a good job to build up tension in these little moments where, like, you're like, something's gonna happen with this kid, whether it be they're just gonna, like, show up and kill the kid, or he's leading her, you're gonna find out he's the leader of the gang or something. I don't know. Like,
that would have been an insane twist.
Yeah.
He had Adam the personality of a turnip.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I thought that beat worked. I don't know. I
did. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying bad choices of her as a person.
I think they made the most interesting choice with that twist that they could have done, for sure. I was like, I didn't see it coming, and I was like, okay, he's weird. I was like, in the time period, I was like, is he gonna like try and awkwardly force himself on her or something? Yeah. Like, because once again, there's lots of these strange movies at this period where it's like it winds up devolving into like a rape revenge movie. So I was like, is that gonna happen in this? Like, what is on the go here? I was just like, the vibes were off completely. And then I was like, oh, it's like a gang initiation or something. And I was fine with that revelation, but once again, I would have liked to piece together a little bit earlier that Jack O'Connell's gang was a gang and not just a group of kids like hanging out. Because like, I had a group of kids that I'd hang out with all the time when I was like that age. There was probably a group of 7 or 8 of us. We weren't actually a gang, like initiating each other. And we were doing stuff like breaking into buildings and whatnot too, like to go exploring and whatnot. But it's just like, it's different in my opinion when it's like a group of friends and a gang. Like, it's just a group of friends, even if you're delinquent kids, like, it's just different. Like, gang mentality, just, once again, there's, like, this implication there of, like, once again, like, you know, getting them all to, like, stab him to, like, kind of become part of the gang or to finish the job.
I don't think it's, like, a gang. I think they're just a group
gang.
of kids, you know? And he was getting them to stab him so, like, he could implicate all of them.
Oh,
so
I
he
get
wouldn't
that.
have to go down. Yeah, but, like, I don't think he's,
moment.
like, a gang. I think they're just kids, shitty kids doing shitty things, and shit escalated.
Yeah, they wind up using, like, the word of, like, if you want to be part of our gang, then you have to burn this person alive, specifically with Adam. That it makes it very much seem like it's a gang initiation, similar to, like, how in real life they go, like,
Sure.
oh, you gotta go stab someone or something.
I just don't think it's, like, a hard gang, you know?
Well,
like, I think it's just...
I kind of agree. I don't think it's a hard gang. I think it's a loose gang.
I think it's a loose
Don't use the word gang then. Use the you want to be part of our crew. You want to be part of, you know, you want to be friends with us. You want to hang out with us. You know, you could have. It's just, once again, when you evoke the word gang, I'm thinking like literally like organized crime, face tattoos. You know, some of them have been in jail, like shit like that.
But they're
it's
also British.
You don't think British people do crime?
Okay, actually, I have a lot of teacher friends. So like
yeah, like handguns and stuff are harder to get, but I'm sure people still do crime. You know,
okay.
Like...
I have a lot of teacher friends who like went over to teach in England for a little while, and they actually left because actually a lot of kids are in gangs there. Apparently, so I don't know what type of gang it is, but apparently they like there's
England
issues.
It's just all Peaky Blinders, man. Just
it's
over
wild.
there. That's it.
I mean, I think if they're in a gang over there, they're in a gang. So
I guess I just can't picture like I don't know.
England's all about that Gucci gang. So
yeah, it was just for me, like, when you use the word gang, and maybe that's just because I live in North America, you know, I'm Canadian, there's a certain, like, image in my mind that I think, like, oh, you're a gangster, you're in a gang, that, and once again, when you're using words like gang initiation, I'm thinking a certain thing in my head, that's all, where it's like, this just felt like, to me, like, with the most charitable reading, it's just like, these kids kept going too far, and they weren't willing to stand up to Jack O'Connell, and they kept getting, like, roped further and further into it, and getting recorded on the phone, and all that stuff, like, where it just feels like, not like a gang, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, that's all. It was just...
Yeah. We're on the same page.
Yeah, and I wanted to say I agreed with you too. You know, you had brought up like the time period and stuff. I was actually highly impressed because the entire time I was watching this, I was like, so when are we gonna get to like some uncomfortable like sexual assault scene or rape or something? Like this is the genre that would definitely approach this. Like the time period is ripe, which I thought was like, you know, not just awesome because you don't always have to see that kind of stuff, but like I thought it was a pretty good twist that that's not in this film where a lot of its contemporaries would be doing that. So I was like, oh, this is like kind of like a pleasant surprise that they're, you know, at least taking that different route of the violence.
Yeah, and I feel like they were very much trying to get the audience to kind of think that that's where it was going to go because obviously there's lots of like just flirting and sexual references between Michael Fassbender and Kelly Riley.
Floppy dicks.
There's the floppy dicks. There's like them like with the binoculars looking at her and stuff, making her feel uncomfortable where she has to cover up. There's like lots of little hints at it that I was like, I think we're inevitably going to get there, and that's why she winds up, like, seeking revenge, essentially. But I am glad as well that we didn't go there. It's like, not every single movie has to devolve into a rape revenge story, especially if it's, like, not an intelligent enough movie to, like, actually deal with that, like, properly. And loads of movies in this time period didn't deal with that properly, so.
I mean, I was curious, too, like, this movie, you know, even if you think it's successful, not successful at, you know, what it's trying to do with the narrative, maybe pretty successful as a form of birth control, just don't have kids because they might you know, be part of gangs, part of Gucci gangs. And
I think the real takeaway is don't kill dogs.
Without killing a dog, we wouldn't have got the John Wick franchise. There's 4 good movies in there. I mean, kill dogs sometimes, you know.
No.
Let me get you saying that on my cell phone camera, Cole, and let me implement you also.
No, please don't. Please
You
don't.
want to be part of Rowan's gang?
Yeah, if only these kids knew that all that video footage from those shitty phones would never be able to be used because the video footage was always terrible on early phones.
I had a note and I was like, she really thinks she's doing something recording this in 100p.
Yeah.
Also dark.
Yeah,
it's not doing anything.
I think it's time we get to the ending. Like that's the thing. It's like, you know, we've kind of talked around and I talked about her mowing down the one girl. Like Jill mentioned the Big Brother beat, which is just kind of like in order for this ending to work, you have to buy into so many weird coincidences that it's kind of like at a certain point it kind of just breaks itself. But also I kind of do like it in the end of the ending. So, you know, she runs through the woods, she stumbles into a roadway, she flags down like Jack O'Connell's older brother's car, which I'm like, okay, it is an interesting beat that someone's actually come looking for this kids, because I was wondering, they've been out there for multiple days just wandering around and whatnot. So I was like, that's fine. But then the fact that she like winds up stealing his car, which I also like, but crashes it into his house, that's insane. Like, and she drives past like multiple buildings and whatnot. I'm like, okay, she's trying to take herself to the hospital or something, obviously, or trying to find it. And then she just crashes into their house. I was like, this is insane. And then also the fact that there's a party on the go with like loads of people there and none of them do nothing. And then in the end, they all agree. It's like, yeah, we're just going to murder her and look the other way. I was just like, this is like a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat in terms of like coincidences. And like, you can get away with like one of those in the movie. Like if she just stumbled out into the road and like it was Buddy's brother, that's a huge coincidence. But the fact that she crashes into the house as well, it's insane. But I kind of did like it in the end. It was it's kind of weird.
I really liked the ending. I thought the ending was pretty good. And just like the movies of this time, just like very harrowing and you know, like we're gonna end off on a bad note, not a happy note.
Yeah. I was expecting her to pull through, man, and that's a bleak ending.
Yeah, it's like a super feel bad ending where I was like, once again, it is kind of like of the times. A lot of these movies in this time period, like kind of like 2003, 4-ish onwards, like, you know, the up to 2010, like a lot of those movies are just like, they're kind of miserable to a certain degree. Like there's a reason why a lot of people don't like those movies, or we don't really revisit them very often. A lot of them kind of got the wrong sort of they took the wrong lessons from something like Saw, for example, right? And like they just went the wrong way, and for some reason we focused on like the hyper violence and like how bleak everything is and like, you know, how terrible it all is. And it's just like, they're not really fun to visit a lot of times. So I was kind of surprised by this too. It's like, it is a very dark ending. Like in respect to all the other movies that were released around it, it makes perfect sense. It was just like, I was expecting her to get away too. I was expecting her to kind of like force herself out of the house, or like maybe someone would have actually helped her or something like that. But yeah, it was a wild ending. But I was like, you know what? It's crazy amount of coincidences, but I do like it. And I actually also like the ending shot as well, with Jack O'Connell going up and he's kind of like, he like deletes the videos off his phone. He puts the glasses on, which is kind of like a trinket of like him killing Michael Fassbender, obviously. And then it's like he's looking at himself in the mirror, which obviously it's super played out. How many of us actually stare at ourselves in the mirror like that? I don't know. I don't do it too often. But then he looks directly at the camera and it's like this little like stinger. And I was like, I kind of like that. You know, it's menacing. You know, it's like there could be kids like this that, you know, that could be capable of anything and whatnot. I thought it was a neat little ending, you know, for a movie that had a lot of dumb choices and made some smarter choices near the end, that I thought it was enjoyable. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, with that, let's land the plane and get into rating this. If you're new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Colton, this is your mama's pick, so we'll let you go first. What would you rate 2008's Lake Eden?
I don't think I enjoyed this as much as you, both of you, or maybe we'll see. I did think it had good casting. I think that the makeup and hairstyling was pretty good. I liked how they were committed to the roles. Must have been a miserable filming experience. For me, it's just a lot of it comes down to like, I just wish the lead was far more intelligent, that she had like more survival instincts. And like, I like a character that stays one step ahead of me, where like the movie surprised me. It's like, oh, you thought of like that. Like that was pretty ingenious. Like you were clever. I didn't find this character as kind of like that. It was more so every decision she made, I was just like, oh, I would have wrote that in a different way, or I would have did something different there. So I like didn't really like that. And on another note, like I actually do like that despite it being around this time, it doesn't like go so far that it's like into torture porn. Like there is a way where it's like you could have had like Michael Fassbender's like entrails hanging out, you know, they could have like gouged out an eye or something like that. And for the time period, it still would have made sense. I'm happy that there was no rape in the movie. That wasn't a big part of it. I liked that the ending was so crazy that it kind of like went back on itself, that I was like, okay, this is actually a crazy ending. So yeah, I don't know. It's like a mixed bag for me. I'd probably just say it's okay. It was all right. It wasn't great. It's not something I'd really like recommend to too many people, but it's not like I didn't regret watching it. And then when I was talking to my mom after the fact about it, like we were kind of just laughing, and she like didn't realize so many different things that I realized. So it was just, it was an entertaining discussion. I am curious as to why she's holding a baseball bat with a nail in it on the poster, but she doesn't use that in the movie. Just once again, weird marketing of the time. But yeah, it's an okay for me. What about you, Rowan?
Well, you know what I was thinking, and if you give me a woman that's been through some shit, that's just standing in a dirty dress, she's covered in mud, I just know she's gonna end up fucking up some kids. That's just the rules that are written about movies. You know what? I'm gonna give it a yay. It might be a light yay, but like I really enjoyed my time with it. This is something I could see myself revisiting, watching with other people. Like it's 90 minutes. It's like it's pretty breezy.
It definitely didn't feel long, for sure.
Yeah, like I think it uses its time well. For like an indie horror of that time period, I thought it was really good. Like I said before multiple times, I thought it was stressful. Like, there was definitely situations they were getting into, whether sensical or not sensical. I was like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? And especially where they kept avoiding, like sexual assault and rape. I kept expecting that at some point. So I'm like, oh, like this is going to be it. And then they surprised me with something not that. And even like the violence that's brought upon them, and especially Michael Fassbender, like I thought it was like you said, it wasn't so over the top, so it did have like a little bit of like realisticness to it that I thought it was pretty brutal. And I thought it was a pretty like just like a pretty like lean, mean little kind of horror flick that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I'll give it a light yay. What about you, Jill?
I'm also going to give it a yay because it was totally not what I expected it to be. In a good way. And even though I didn't like any of the characters, that was kind of a good thing, because this was like really harrowing, really brutal, really just bleak. But sometimes that's the human nature of it all. So I liked that. I like the setting, it being England. I know I probably beat this horse to death already, but I love Jack O'Connell. And it was very much an offshoot of Skins, like his character in Skins, like his episodes, same shit. And I love that. So it was like watching Skins, but like add this couple to it and, some brutal shit. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the ending. It wasn't predictable. And yeah, I liked it. Yay.
And if you made it this far in the show and you're not following us on our socials already, we're available everywhere at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, / your letterbox threads, Blue Sky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to support the show like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Carvey, Dan, Brian, and Trevor, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams hosted by Jill, and get episodes of our main show 48 hours early, based on if Rowan can get it done in time. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, we never discussed the music in this movie at all.
I don't think there was much. Like, it wasn't a very, like, I'm sure there was a score, but it wasn't in your face or anything.
But if they want to listen to, other horror
that's
music,
right.
You know where to.
You can go to the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of our social media that Colton just mentioned. Go to the bio. There's a Linktree link. Click it. It'll take you directly there. We upload licensed music and scores from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love in general. So yeah, go there, follow the playlist. We upload it regularly. New stuff, and take a listen. Get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And with that, that comes to a close for another Patreon pick. I'm sure we have another one coming up next month also. Yeah, who knows? For me, maybe not so much for Colton, but for me, we've kind of been getting like banger after banger on these ones. So I appreciate you guys not trying to ruin our evenings or days watching something so bad that we're like, oh Lord. Although I feel like even Graveyard Shift was one of those picks people were probably hoping we'd hate, and then we end up loving it.
That was good. So yeah, the bar is high for Carvey, who's my stepdad, who's the next Patreon member, just another member of Colton's family. You have to do better than 1 okay and 2 yays, to outdo Mom. So you better pick a better movie, I guess.
Let's get us to 3 nays. Let's see how low we can get.
Knowing Carvey's taste in movies, there's a chance we just get a real stinker, but we'll see.
Oh no.
I'm so excited.
Cole's already talking shit. But anyway, thank you for all the support. I am your humble host, Rowan.
I'm Colton. Thanks, Mom.
Bye, it's Jill.
We look after our own around here.